Step out of the vehicle. Now.
Am I being detained or arrested, officer?
I'll decide that. Get out before I make it worse.
I'd like to know the reason for this stop.
This racist cop made the worst mistake of his career by harassing a black cab driver during what should have been a routine traffic stop. Officer Dalton threw racial slurs, made threats, and abused his authority, all because he thought he could get away with it. What he didn't know was that the man sitting in that cab wasn't just any driver. He was Chief Raymond Torres, the head of the entire police department, working undercover to root out corruption within his own ranks. Before we dive into how this all unfolded, give me a moment and let's do this. We're building something special here, and every view means the world to us. So tell me, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Let's grow this community together, one story at a time. It was a Thursday afternoon in late September when Chief Raymond Torres decided to go undercover. He had been hearing complaints for months about certain officers conducting biased traffic stops in the downtown district. Reports kept coming in about Black and Latino drivers being pulled over for minor infractions, then subjected to aggressive questioning that went far beyond protocol. Torres knew that sitting behind a desk wouldn't reveal the truth. He needed to see it firsthand. He borrowed an old yellow cab from the department's vehicle impound lot, dressed in casual clothes, and hit the streets. For 3 days, he drove around the city without incident. Then came day 4. Torres was heading north on Maple Avenue when he noticed the flashing lights in his rearview mirror. He pulled over smoothly, turned off the engine, and placed both hands on the steering wheel. He had done nothing wrong. No speeding, no broken tail light, no expired tags. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. Officer Dalton approached the driver's side window with a flashlight in hand, even though it was broad daylight. He was a 12-year veteran of the force, known among his peers for being thorough, but also for having a short temper. He tapped on the glass, and Torres rolled it down. Dalton leaned in slightly, scanning the interior of the cab with suspicious eyes. He asked for license and registration. Torres handed them over without a word. Dalton studied the documents for longer than necessary, then looked back at Torres with a cold stare. Dalton asked Torres where he was coming from and where he was headed. Torres answered calmly. He said he had just dropped off a passenger near the financial district and was heading back to his usual route. Dalton wasn't satisfied. He asked how long Torres had been driving cabs. Torres said 2 years. That was a lie, but it fit the cover. Dalton asked if he had any drugs or weapons in the vehicle. Torres said no. Dalton asked if he could search the trunk. Torres asked why. That question changed everything. Dalton stepped back from the window and his expression hardened. He asked Torres if he had a problem with cooperating. Torres remained calm and said he simply wanted to know the reason for the stop. Dalton said he didn't need to explain himself. Torres pressed gently, reminding him that drivers have a right to know why they've been pulled over. That was when Dalton's tone shifted. He called Torres difficult. He said people like him always make things harder than they need to be. The words hung in the air like poison. Torres felt his pulse quicken, but kept his face neutral. He asked Dalton to clarify what he meant by people like him. Dalton smirked and said Torres knew exactly what he meant. Then came the slur. It was quiet, muttered under his breath, but Torres heard it clearly. So did the body camera clipped to Dalton's chest. Torres didn't react. He sat perfectly still, hands still on the wheel, watching Dalton's reflection in the side mirror. Dalton walked back to his patrol car and sat inside for several minutes. Torres watched him through the rearview mirror, making notes and typing something into his dashboard computer. When Dalton returned, his demeanor had shifted from hostile to outright aggressive. He told Torres to step out of the vehicle.
Torres asked if he was being detained or arrested. Dalton said he would decide that in a moment. Torres complied and slowly opened the door, keeping his movements deliberate and visible. Once outside, Dalton ordered Torres to place his hands on the hood of the cab. Torres did as instructed. Dalton began patting him down roughly, far more aggressively than standard procedure required. He asked Torres again if there was anything illegal in the car. Torres said no. Dalton said he didn't believe him. He said people in this neighborhood always had something to hide. Torres asked what neighborhood he was referring to. Dalton ignored the question and continued the search. After finding nothing, Dalton stepped back and crossed his arms. He told Torres he was going to write him a citation for failure to signal when changing lanes 3 blocks back. Torres hadn't changed lanes. He knew it. Dalton knew it. But Dalton believed he had the upper hand. He said if Torres argued, he would add resisting and obstruction charges. He said it would be Torres's word against his, and nobody would believe a cab driver over a decorated officer. That was his final mistake.
Torres reached into his pocket slowly and pulled out a leather badge holder. He flipped it open and held it up at eye level. Dalton froze. His eyes locked on to the gold shield and the words engraved beneath it, Chief of Police. For a moment, Dalton said nothing. His face went pale, his mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Torres introduced himself by full name and title. He said he had been conducting an undercover operation for the past week to investigate reports of discriminatory traffic stops. Dalton had just become Exhibit A. Dalton stammered and tried to backtrack. He said he didn't know. He said he was just doing his job. Torres cut him off. He reminded Dalton of every word he had said, every slur he had muttered, every threat he had made. He told Dalton that his body camera had recorded the entire encounter and that the footage would be reviewed by Internal Affairs within the hour. Dalton's hands started shaking. He tried to apologize. Torres didn't accept it. He told Dalton to return to his patrol car and wait for further instruction. Torres called dispatch directly and identified himself. He requested that a supervisor respond to the scene immediately. Within minutes, Lieutenant Karen Broussard arrived. She stepped out of her vehicle, and her face went rigid when she saw Torres standing beside the cab in civilian clothes. He briefed her on everything that had transpired. She listened in silence, occasionally glancing over at Dalton, who sat in his patrol car with his head in his hands. Torres told her to escort Dalton back to the station and begin the formal process.
Dalton was placed on immediate suspension pending a full investigation. His badge and service weapon were confiscated before he even left the scene. The body camera footage was reviewed by Internal Affairs that same evening. Every word, every gesture, every racial slur was documented and time-stamped. The evidence was undeniable. Within 72 hours, the department issued a public statement condemning Dalton's behavior and announcing that he would face both administrative and potential criminal charges for civil rights violations. The local news picked up the story within days. Dalton's name and face were plastered across headlines. Community activists who had been fighting against biased policing for years held press conferences praising Chief Torres for taking action. From the inside, the department announced mandatory retraining for all officers and a revised protocol for traffic stops that included stricter oversight and accountability measures. Torres used the incident as a teaching moment, reminding his officers that the badge was a responsibility, not a shield for prejudice. Dalton's career was effectively over. He faced up to 18 months of unpaid suspension, thousands of dollars in legal fees, and the likelihood of losing his pension if criminal charges were filed. His reputation was destroyed. Fellow officers distanced themselves from him. The union refused to publicly defend his actions. He had walked into that traffic stop believing he was untouchable. He left it with nothing. Torres returned to his role as chief with renewed determination. He knew that one bad officer being held accountable wouldn't fix the system overnight, but it sent a clear message. No one was above the law, not even those sworn to uphold it. He continued his undercover work periodically, always watching, always listening, always ready to step in when power was abused. So here's the question. Do you think justice was truly served? Or does it take more than one officer being held accountable to create real change? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another story like this. We'll see you in the next one.